And boom, we are live. Happy Friday. Here we are, almost mid November. It's a little less than 2 weeks to Thanksgiving in the US. I don't know how we got there.
Same.
Someone someone said the other day we are about 50 days to 2023 and I about
Mm.
had a panic attack. I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute. How can we almost be 2023?" I'm still not sure I'm even all the way ready for 2022. I still have so much to do. Anyway, welcome everyone. I'm Becky Scott, head of community. I've got Alexa and Scott with me. Alexa, how's it going?
It's going well. I'm excited. My parents are traveling, so new background. I'm staying at their house while they're traveling, and I'm watching our sweet, almost 17-year-old cat for the next week and a half here. So I'm excited to get some snuggle time in and yeah, enjoy a house.
It's a running joke that I think Alexa's background changes like at least once or twice a month.
I could definitely open a pet sitting business on the side. I watch so many animals. So if you need any animal sitting, hit me
Yeah.
up. Yeah, all right.
In the North South Carolina area, within probably a 3-4 hour drive of Charlotte, Greenville
That's right.
area, I think
Yeah,
Alexa might be for hire. So,
willing to travel.
sorry, Scott, you might be a little too far away.
I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah. And welcome back, Scott. It's been a while since we have had you here. For those of you who don't know Scott Reed, he's one of our old timers. And I mean that in the best way possible because Scott's been around Jump Cloud for quite a while. I think this is what your second time around, or is this your second time
Second
around?
time back on the show.
But how many times have you been at Jump Cloud? Did you leave and come back?
Yeah. Boomerang hire. So joined Jump Cloud on the support team, led the solutions architecture team where we built the PowerShell module, and then brought Jump Cloud MDM to market. So that was a fun journey. Took a sabbatical and came back for patch management.
Yeah. So everybody was really excited when Scott came back, and I'm like, "Who's Scott? I don't know who this guy is," but I have since gotten to know him, and he's pretty awesome. So I see why his reputation precedes him, and we've got some fun stuff to talk about today. We're very excited. I know Scott's been chomping at the bit to talk about Chrome Patch Management, so that is coming up. But first, as usual, we will talk about community and then meetups. We have a little bit of product news, and then we will jump into Chrome browser patch management. Lots of good stuff there. So really quickly on the community front, it's been a couple weeks since we've been here, so there's a ton going on in the community. I couldn't even list all of them, but I wanted to highlight a few things. Joe Workman posted a script for a report on suspended users. Thought that might be useful for people. Chris Tate has posted his 5th post in his MSP series. So make sure you check that out. That is actually about clients. We've got another script for a report on users and associated groups and systems. David posted about the Windows 0 days that just came through on Patch Tuesday. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the news section as well. And Franco, excuse me, I'm having trouble today. Franco has a Sentinel-1 and Win11 question that has not been answered yet on the community. So if you are knowledgeable in that area, you might want to go help him out. We've got a ton of posts in the Jump Cloud product news board, which is new. Like I mentioned the last time we were on here, we've made it a little bit easier for you to subscribe to our product release news. So we've carved that out into a separate board. You can still see them from the homepage in the news feed, but anytime you want to know what's going on in the product, you can jump straight to that board. You can go to options and click subscribe. And that way you will get notified each time something new comes out there. It makes it really easy to see what's happening in the product. And we hope that you do that. And I will shortly be posting some instructions on that in case you don't know how to do it, but it's pretty easy once you click around a little bit. But that's it for now. There's a lot more going on in the community, so make sure you go check that out. But Alexa, go on about meetups. There's some stuff going on there.
Yeah, well, unfortunately for our Chicago folks, we weren't able to have this month's meetup. It was supposed to be this week, but we had some scheduling conflicts. No biggie. We will be back next month on the 9th, or sorry, I'm sorry, on the 7th with our regular meetup in Chicago. So if you're in Chicago, make sure you join us for that one, last one of the year. But we will be live next week in DC and Raleigh with 2 meetups. So if you're in the DC or Raleigh area, make sure you register for those. They're going to be a lot of fun. Becky is hosting the Raleigh meetup along with Tom Bridge, who will be traveling down from DC for that. So that's going to be awesome. Really looking forward to that. And then, of course, Tom will be hosting the meetup in DC. So it's going to be a lot of fun. They're both at breweries. So if you want to enjoy a beer on Jump Cloud, make sure you register. So we're talking about security. The conversation will flow. It'll take you anywhere, but that's kind of the launching point coming off of, we had Cybersecurity Awareness Month last month. So figured it was a good continuation of some awesome conversations we've been having already. So yeah, that is coming up next week. And then next month, we added a Denver meetup, actually. And you might see Scott there if you are in the Denver area and register for that one. So that is going to be December 7th. Also going to be a lot of fun. Hoping to have a lot of Jump Cloudians attend because that is where our headquarters are. So if you want to meet up with the Jump Cloud team, make sure you register for that one. It's not officially launched on the platform yet, but I will be getting that launched here in the next week or so. So I'll post the link in Slack and all of that. So yeah, and other than that, we are still planning to have a Tel Aviv meetup if you're joining us internationally next month, as well as our newest group in Sydney, Australia. So exciting things to come for the rest of the year and looking forward to next year. Yeah.
Lots going on. So cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And product release news. We've got a couple of things going on. I saw in the product release forum that Cheyenne had posted about just a little bit about the implementation webinars, the self-guided. She posted something about that. So if you're interested in a little more, you can check that out. Also, we've got a note about modernizing the login experience. So we are getting ready to release an identity first login flow for the user portal and IDP login pages. And our team has posted a heads up on that and a little bit more about that, including a short video kind of walking through what that's going to look like. So that is there and you can go check that out. We're also sending out emails around that as well as a heads up that that is coming. And also coming soon, mid-month, so probably about another week and a half or so, we're adding a disk encryption condition for conditional access policies. So admins can block access to cloud applications from a managed device where disk encryption is not enabled. And that is for native disk encryption methods only. And for systems not mobile, it will only support managed systems at this time. So if it's non-managed, it won't support that. But basically, you will be able to add those conditional access policies. So we're looking forward to having that out very soon. And the product manager wanted us to talk about that today and give you a little bit of heads up that that's coming. Very excited to have that. And with that, Scott, Chrome browser patch management, which by the way, I had to reboot Chrome yesterday. I got this little pop-up that said, "Hey, reboot your Chrome or we're going to reboot it for you." So tell us about that.
Pretty awesome to see Jump Cloud dog food their features. This was a fun project to work on, and for all intents and purposes, like it kind of landed at the perfect time. Since we've gone live with the policy, which I want to say was a week from yesterday. I think we did it Thursday or Wednesday of last week. I think that there's been a Chrome 0 day, and then there's been another critical bug that Chrome has pushed a fix for.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Chrome patch management. To that end, I am a big visual person. So if it's cool, I would love to share my screen and just kind of guide us through what the feature is, what it does. So I'm going to test screen sharing.
All right. I'm going to
Boom.
sacrifice something to demo gods real quick.
Sacrifice something to the demo guards, and here we are inside the JumpCloud admin console. To that end, you're going to see some other things that we can talk about that are new on this page overall. We've got a new navigation structure here. When we launched this last week, this used to be called OS Patch Management, this tab. Now it's called Patch Management, and we've got two different tabs. The OS tab is where all those default OS policies are. You can click here to run your policy report, and we just added this update history chart. So to that end, you can see, there's kind of a trust but verify going on here. So based on the releases, which are over here on the right, we should be able to see and filter by, releases that are coming out to make sure that, if you had a Mac policy come out that applies things in 10 days, you'll be able to see here on the left, those updates get installed as you reach that 10-day deadline. So a fun update history chart that we added here last week that snuck in, but I don't want to have it be undershadowed because this is a really cool use of this rich directory insights data. So let's go back and talk about what Chrome patch management is. And to that end, we've got a new browsers tab, and we generate 1, 2, 3, 4 default policies to show you what this looks like inside of a zero state. So zero state means nothing's configured. When you go to this browser tab, there's just a button here to load the default policies, and clicking this loads those 4 default policies. To that end, looking at what these things do, I want to show something that is really, really amazing. This is a single policy with a Windows system, a Linux system, and a Mac system reporting a successful policy result. This is what we call a universal policy. And it's really what my vision for JumpCloud has been for quite some time. Something that's easy to configure, and it's something that is agnostic to OS. So over here, these are all the versions supported. You'll be seeing some minor increments roll out to make this look a little nicer on the eyes. But right now it supports Windows, Mac, and these distributions of Linux. And what this policy tunes when we start to think about the patch settings is it actually modifies the action that the browser has to respect when new updates come available. So inside of Chrome, as we've built this out, there is some pretty amazing management capabilities offered through Google. And to that end, when we look at this URL that I'm on now, this is what the Chrome browser, what policies it has set. And if we look at this source and platform, the source is from what management plane are we applying policies? And everything at the cloud level is, for all intents and purposes, because I've signed into my browser. What JumpCloud is setting is it's setting management rules at the platform level, which are inescapable. These are immutable. These are applying via the MDM mobile configs and the local GPOs that we're setting and plist files on Linux. And these are the main 2 values that our patch management framework is enforcing. Now, the number one question I have gotten since we released this feature is, gosh, why did we pick milliseconds? That makes no sense. And I 100% agree, but this is what this setting wants. So the relaunch notification period is the value that this policy is modifying. And to that end, the value is looking for a millisecond value. So because this policy is universal and it's applying across 3 OSs, giving the policy the actual value that it wants in the UI was a much more effective effort in order to get this policy out. So this millisecond value for whatever time is the time period that people have before their browser is going to relaunch. So these policies, what they do is they relaunch the browser, and there's some great UX that kind of pops up and says, hey, you have this long to do it. At the end of that period, it just does it. So Becky, here's a question for you. Did you click the button relaunch now or just wait for it to do its thing?
Oh, I clicked relaunch because I didn't want it to I didn't want to be in the middle of something and have it do it because I didn't know what I'd be doing right that time. I wanted to do it before I went into a meeting rather than, like be in the middle of a meeting and just be like, whoops. Oh, yep. There you go.
And
it worked.
For all intents and purposes, like Chrome updates, we want to roll them out pretty quickly, the last couple. But if you want to roll them out over time, that's when you'll probably see that common pattern where there's like a green dot, a yellow dot, and then a red dot in the top right, which we don't like. That red dot means an update's been available for 7 days. So these policies and settings will respect showing those colored dots. But here at JumpCloud, we like to roll things out quickly when there's 0 days.
It gave me hours. It
Zero
gave me a
day
few
means
hours.
fire burning. It means exploit available until you do the thing, which is why,
Mhm.
to that end, this policy is so powerful. Yeah, they could have picked epoch time. That would have been awesome. So let's talk about other things that we can do inside of this policy. And again, I don't want to distract, but I am so stoked that we have a universal policy because this is a framework that I want to use to continue to build out policies, so we don't have to do per OS policies for things that are kind of a given. Sign-in settings are something that can be enforced, and these are really allow you to tune what we call kind of the first run settings, or the employee experience that happens when you launch the browser. If you enforce sign-in, you can also restrict that sign-in to a regex pattern, and in that way, end users actually cannot use the browser until they do that process of signing into the browser, and can only sign in with their company account. So that's one way that you can really lock down and take complete control over the browser that they're using, ensuring that those settings are saved if they ever need to migrate to a new computer, so that you don't get into that situation of having to migrate someone's bookmarks. Final piece that I want to call out that's just a better together story is what we can do to enroll devices in Chrome Browser Cloud Management. So oftentimes as a product manager, I have to make decisions about, what features we build versus what features we complement. Chrome Browser Cloud Management is a service offered by Google for all intents and purposes for free. Even if you don't have a G Suite account, you can sign up for one to use it. And this is what allows you to unlock the full management capabilities of all of the policies inside of the Chrome browser. So to that end, you're going to see me scrolling. And right now my scroll bar is, I don't know, maybe the size of a Snickers bar. When I check this box to say show policies with no value set, this thing now becomes the size of a Tic Tac. And these are all the capabilities that you could manage and set inside of Google Chrome Browser Cloud Management. With other things that are available are also the ability to enforce and install extensions like the JumpCloud Password Manager. And this is offered absolutely for free from Google, where the thing that Google can't do is they can't enroll devices in it automatically. So that's where we have a really powerful, better together story to enroll devices into Chrome Browser Cloud Management, where you get complete control over all of the other browser settings. You can manage extensions as well as get some pretty powerful reporting. The Enable Chrome Browser Cloud Management reporting, with this enabled, you can actually get down to the fidelity to see which profiles exist on a given managed browser, which is pretty cool, as well as get full extension information to see if there's anything that you guys could potentially be vulnerable to from an unwanted or unmanaged extension. So super excited about this policy. Things that are coming out as we think about what's rolling, as I kind of highlighted that we've got some UX to come up to make this look a little cleaner. Other things that are coming is that you will be able to generate a browser report in the same method that we have for the patch policies for OS. So you'll be able to get a report that tells you all of your devices associated to a policy, the policy status, as well as the information about the last version of Chrome that was installed on it. And that information, just so that we all know for what the last install was, will be coming from Directory Insights, where inside of Directory Insights, we have a service for software management. And this software management service is logging all of the updates to apps on a device. So here, for example, is the JumpCloud Password Manager getting updated. That report will be pulling the last Chrome update for a device to generate and let us know what version of Chrome is on that device in that report. So really exciting stuff, and it really couldn't have come at a better time. Again, I think we've had 2 0 days since we released this thing. One for sure, which came out on Halloween, but there was another critical one pushed out this week that, for all intents and purposes, you can fire and forget your 0-day remediations for Chrome just by quickly setting up this policy.
One thing I love about it is previously there would just be something in the upper corner where it would just say, oh, you need to update your Chrome browser. This literally puts it front and center. It pops up in the middle of my screen and says, hey, you need to update your Chrome browser. Otherwise, it was just up in the corner and said update, but it's really easy to ignore. This is much more visible. yes, it interrupts, but in a good way because it reminds you that, hey, this is really important. It is right here, front and center. You can choose to just let it go, let it fire when it's supposed to fire, or you can do it right then and there. And like I said, I had 20 minutes before a meeting and I chose to do it then so that it was just done and out of the way. And I didn't have to worry about, oh, well, in 3 hours, I don't know exactly what I'm going to be doing. It might disrupt something that I'm doing. So I'll do it now when I have the time to do it. And that was super helpful.
Yeah, and the deployment method, we've kind of all settled into the future of deployment, which is very much ring deployment, which is just a fancy way to call out the one sum many of rolling any things out. Roll it out to one, make sure it doesn't break. Roll it out to some. Are we still good? If we're good, roll it out to everyone. So that is how these same defaults are configured. And inside the knowledge base article, we'll see what those same defaults are. 0-day is within 24 hours. Early adoption is 2 days. General adoption, I think, is 5 days. And then late adoption, I think, is 2 weeks. But to that end, the employee experience is great. Chrome, it's not like installing an OS update, right? It relaunched and you were probably back in action within 5 seconds, depending on your hardware. And of course, you can save your tabs and all those things are there. So it's kind of surprising how powerful these policies can be, where organizations that are trying to deal with the Chrome 0-day, there's a lot of things that you have to do to get that thing to restart. And I can't tell you how many times as I built out this process, I had people reference that dreaded little red dot in the top right, which means an update has been available for that user's Chrome for more than 7 days, and it just hasn't relaunched. So big amount of time savings that we're looking to put out there, and just value to reduce the attack service by allowing Jump Cloud policies to automatically restart Chrome with a positive experience for the end user.
I admit I'm a Chrome abuser. I currently have 15 windows open and at least 40 tabs in one window and probably 50 or 60 tabs in another. My smallest tab maybe has 5, or my smallest window probably has 5 tabs open. So it may take them more than a few seconds to reboot, but it's not bad. Sean's like, that's all. Well, I mean, I'm yes, I know I have 15 windows open and 40 is probably the smallest number of tabs I have in one window. But we do have some questions. Sean wants to know, I may have missed this and I don't want to derail patch management. With Chrome management, are we able to lock down the use of password storage? We don't want our users to use the password management options available in Chrome Google Profile.
It's an existing policy for Windows right now, actually. There's a Chrome policy to do that. You can manage those same things with a custom MDM profile on Mac OS and Profile Creator, but there's a configurable policy to do that on Windows right now to lock down that. So that's there. This policy is very much focused on the things that we want to do to enforce patching, configure first run settings, and then make that better together story for integration with Chrome browser cloud management. So that's what the policy does. But specifically for password management, there's a policy included in just device management on the Alt tab for Windows that locks down the ability to use Chrome as a password manager. So you can use Jump Cloud.
Awesome. And then John wants to know, does it support Catalina? We were told it only works on Mac OS 11 and up. And by the way, hi, Scott.
The policy requires MDM enrollment. That could be, I'm trying to think in terms of if it supports Catalina. So we will no longer be supporting Catalina very soon. Apple will not be supporting it either, and that's when we stop supporting it. To kind of dig into some of the things that we're working on is now that we've got an overview page, which I was the PM for. So you can either love it or hate it, but I gave us a way to make sure you go to the device list by default if you want to. We can start to surface more fleet information. And we're actively working to make the fleet dashboard not just include information about when new updates come out, but when OSs go end of service. For us, anytime an OS no longer receives security updates from Apple, we want to make sure that we try and get devices and organizations on a OS version that is receiving security updates. Running a unsupported version of OS is by no means in any ways the best practice, but sometimes it's a necessity for apps that are just business critical and have to run. So we really lock those down. But to that end, the only thing that's required for macOS in this policy is MDM enrollment. So if you can MDM enroll that device, this policy will apply to it. But I do want to call out that Catalina hasn't gotten an update for 114 days, and I don't think it's going to get another one. So to that end, it's going end of service very, very soon.
Great. And one last one. Because we're never happy, will this be expanding to Edge as well, being Chrome-based? And that's from Rob.
That's where I can kind of let you into the thinking of myself as a PM. I'm waiting for the feedback that says we need Edge. Right now, when I start to think about what Edge is used for, the top use case that comes to mind in all my conversations is that it's a vehicle to get to Google Chrome. So to that end, with it being Chrome-based, we can absolutely create policies for it. It is, again, Chromium-based, so some of those management policies are there, but the decision point I'm at is, do we go deeper in additional browsers, or is now the time where we start to work on third-party apps? The mobility apps like GoToMeeting and Zoom and Slack is the direction that we absolutely are taking the patch roadmap. And to that end, the current policy that we're working on with the team that built out Patch is building out major update enforcement for macOS into the policy. So that major upgrade enforcement will bring feature parity for what the patch policy for Windows has. And the major update enforcement, some of the exciting things I can share with you there is this is going to be using the MDM commands on Apple to do so. So administrative permissions will not be required to use this policy to upgrade devices to a major version. A lot more to come. You're going to hear in the coming IT hours about how Apple is kind of changing the game of software update again. I'll tease it there. Administrative permissions are not going to be required, certain versions and above. But to that end, we want to enhance our Mac patch policy to give feature parity for enforcing major versions, the same way we do on Windows.
Yeah. You got a little bit of disagreement here in the comments on your Edge comments. I'm just saying that you got some pushback on your dislike of Edge, but that's okay. Well,
It's not my dislike of Edge. It just comes down to a value versus effort.
Usage.
Yeah. And, we start to think about overall usage, right? Like it's majority versus minority. Of course, Edge is built on Chromium. There's some benefits for it. I think I used to use Edge to get Microsoft credits, right? To pay for my Xbox Live just by doing Google searches. Like that's freaking awesome. But to that end, when we think about the usage in our customer base, it right now has not bubbled up to be a top priority, but that's what these conversations are for.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I mean, if y'all have usage stats, where you're a Microsoft house and that's a major thing for you, then please put in a feature request for that. Seriously, the more feature requests we have that are specifically mentioning Edge, the more likely we are to be able to put that data forward and say, hey, we have enough requests that this needs to be a priority. Yep. So we're not, we're not opposed to that, but we have to have the data to back it to say we have enough Edge users to make this a priority for us. So,
one thing I'd love to kind of open up the thread for is, do you guys enforce a specific browser being the company browser? So for example, Jump Cloud IT says Chrome is the browser. And they say if you're using Safari, Firefox, or Edge, that's outside of the policy. So we have like a policy here at Jump Cloud where we are basically mandated to use the Chrome browser. Yeah. Is that something that in your roles you have, or is it does it come down to preference and allowance for users?
I'm seeing one comment where somebody said that Edge is a licensed Microsoft product and is critical for some companies. So, and if you're a 365 shop, you'll want to use Edge as it syncs with OneDrive and 365 Suite. So if you're exclusively a Microsoft shop, I could see where that might be true. But even when I've been in Microsoft shops, we still used Chrome, but that may not be the case for everyone. So Rob is saying he lets his users choose Firefox, Chrome, or Edge, and that Safari needs to be put down behind a barn somewhere. Sean follows the same policy. Brandon, previous role, we preferenced Edge but allowed Chrome. And John does not enforce which browser. Will says used to be Edge. Luke says Chrome only, but we don't blacklist Edge. And Brandon says we use Google Chrome, but we are a G Suite shop.
Yep. And again, when we start to think about one of the values of Jump Cloud that, we preach, it's this open directory platform, right? Bring your apps, bring your devices open. So by no means is this a conversation to say we're not going to do these things, but it just comes down to roadmap. So we always envisioned with browsers, both Firefox and Edge being browsers that are in there. Safari updates automatically through security, through incremental updates. Sometimes there'll be a more option where you can install a specific Safari update. But really my decision point is not if, but when, and the order. And if I understand or reading through the sentiment here, I'm going to give a opportunity to vote on the order, right? So if we think that Edge is the right next one over Firefox or Firefox over Edge, just one word, put in the browser that you think would be the second most important browser to have a policy for, either Firefox or Edge.
And my kids throw me off all the time because they download Opera. They're like, I don't want Chrome. I don't want Safari. And they go to Opera. And I'm like, why? So you never know.
Becky, I'm wondering if we should create a poll here.
Yeah, we could do that. Let me
Yeah.
do that. Which browser
Perfect.
do you want to see supported? And that was, let's see, I'm putting it in right now, y'all. Firefox and Edge. I will make it visible. Come on. Is it showing up for you now?
I see it.
Okay. So go ahead and vote on your preference here. And I just put just Firefox and Edge for the time being. Okay, now we're starting to see some votes. Comments so far, Vivaldi for life. Rob.
So that was the definition of leading the witness for me and how I phrased that.
Uh-huh.
But it kind of, I definitely, when we think about the implementation, what's excited about the level of effort it would be to get to Edge is because it's Chromium based, it's rinse and repeat from the perspective of what we built. But Edge and Firefox. So let's go wider, just more freeform. Are there any other browsers that you would like policies for that are not Safari, Firefox, Edge, or Chrome? I mean, I guess Opera, right, is the only other one that kind of comes to mind.
Yeah, I can add that one. Let's see. I can add Opera.
Brave, yep.
Oh no, I'm gonna start saying I'm feeling a song. I'm feeling a song coming on. I'm trying to resist.
You haven't sung in a while.
I know.
So great question. Do the policies first install Chrome? They do not. These policies configure the settings for Chrome. They are policies that are laid down regardless if Chrome is there or not. Software management right now and policy management, that's where we drew the line for this increment. But when we start to think about third-party app patching, third-party apps is going to include the installation of the app. So one of the benefits or one of the opportunities that came into the feature planning of this is I asked the question many, many times, how important is it that Chrome is there and installed by the policy? And in 9 out of 10 of those conversations, admin says Chrome's already there. The first thing we do when we get devices is we already have Chrome installed on it. So we just need a policy to make sure it stays up to date, which is why we chose a policy as a way to enforce that. Third-party app patch management, which is kind of what we're going to be kicking off as we start the new year here at Jump Cloud, is going to be all about drawing a line of delineation between what's currently offered as software management, which is very much manually configured, and what will become included in the patch queue, which is going to be more of a fire forget framework. And when I say fire and forget, the goal is to have a catalog of the main apps that companies use and have that catalog, your mobility suite, Slack, Chrome, GoToMeeting, Zoom, be applied universally the same way that these browser policies are. So you just get your company apps universally applied across your devices, and installation and removal are going to be part of those policies. But for these patch policies, there's no install. It just lays down the settings, and Chrome respects it once it gets on the device.
Well, we've got 1 vote for Brave, 2 for Firefox, and 8 for Edge. Did anyone else want to vote? That's only about 11 out of the almost 30 people we have. Going once. Oh, we can continue to leave it up and keep talking. I'll leave it up for a little bit longer. Let's see, were there any... If the goal is to annoy your users, we need to get the DuckDuckGo browser added. Rob, I tell you what are we going to do with you?
What is it, the Onion browser or something like that?
1 person was Brave. I'll show myself out. We're going to kick you out. We cannot get third-party app patching soon enough. I cannot wait. That's from Nathan.
We're working hard. To that end, software management's a thing, so we've got to draw the line somewhere. And again, that line right now, we're looking at how we can apply it universally, how it can be a fire and forget framework. And we also have to respect that there's certain level of software management where these are private apps that are not public that are going to be updated by JumpCloud. So software management, having some level of a private repository are things that we're spinning on now as we plan that feature.
Yeah, and as John called out, you can only vote for 1. So just whichever your biggest priority would be, there's no way to stack rank in these polls. So let's see here. Sean has another question. In regard to patch management and the management section, will there be an option in the future to display higher level totals for OS versions and patches?
Higher level totals. Tell me more. So if I go and start to think about what we're going to do with the overview page, I have a belief that the overview page is really where we want to start to centralize and pull those needles out of a haystack. So to that end, there are some UI changes that are coming. Let's see if I can figure out how to share my screen again. I hover on myself. I go like this. I go like this.
Oh, totals for my machines is what he's saying.
Let me scroll. Higher level totals for OS versions and patches. So to that end, we have this 3 devices, 3 OS versions. And you can see here that this is a donut chart. We are making this a lot more data rich and just kind of condensing it so that we've got better use of the screen. And is this not serving that job of showing you the versions and the device counts?
Target my low-hanging fruit and get them up to date.
Yep. So when we start to think about how we're attacking that, you can see that the device list in JumpCloud, right? If we go on this overview screen, I could say, hey, imagine that there's more devices here, but these are the ones that I want to apply updates for. We're actively thinking about how we can just make searching and filtering better so that you can get the right policies applied to the right devices. You see this rich search and filter that I have here on the device list. But if you were trying to say, hey, I want to put all of these devices in a policy that are running version 11.6, that's impossible to do inside the console now. Hence why once upon a time, I wrote the JumpCloud PowerShell module, because that was an easy way to search and filter things and add them to things. The search and filter that we offer inside of the associations has an opportunity to be improved drastically, where you can get the right devices applied to the right groups. And we are actively working on that plan for how we make that experience easier so that you as admins can add the right devices to the right policies, the right apps, the right users in the right groups, and do so with a search and filter that matches your needs at the time. So we are working on search and filter as kind of like one of the highest priority things that we can do to just make the life of administrator easier so that we don't have to go outside of the admin console to search for something and apply it to something. the top usage of our PowerShell module is for associations change. And while on one hand that's exciting because people are using a tool that once upon a time I created, the other hand says, man, I wish we could keep people in the console and make that job easier.
And John adds, Scott, think inventory, that would be a useful tool to many IT people. And by the way, we are working on asset management, but I think that got pushed to early next year.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue right now that JumpCloud is an asset management platform that just has a couple features it needs to add to kind of take over some of those jobs. Asset management, asset tagging, virtual asset tags, object attributes, this all plays into kind of this search and filter. So as we, think about the features that are coming out, many features just allow for easy management of the admin console, which in some ways asset management. Traditional asset management, when we start to think about, depreciating items and using it as a way that finance can use to project what devices need to be built. I've seen a lot of creative JumpCloud admins use the data we have to build it on their own. But that to me is the thing that is a roadmap item that we're looking at bringing into the product next year that is really creating a full asset management solution to do those jobs is something that was in planning, and I'm not sure about the status of it right now.
Great. And then another question, let's see, from Justin. Will there be an easier way to deploy antivirus software like SentinelOne?
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal is to make JumpCloud easier to use in every way we can. And to that end, there's opportunities that we have across the suite where people do things different ways, and that's one of the powers of our platform. So some admins use commands to deploy private apps, others use the custom package URL, and these are all things that we're looking to enhance with additional features. So certainly these are things that when we start to think about what are we working on, it's ways we take these fishing poles that we built that you guys are using and we give them more capabilities so that they can do more things. And to that end, both software management and commands have pretty exciting enhancements planned.
And funny enough, in the script repo, the one that we have that FullGubby did for SentinelOne, the install for Mac OS and Linux, is probably the most viewed page on the community right now. Like, it's well over 16,000 views. Like, that is the number one thing that brings people to the community at the moment. So SentinelOne is apparently people are searching for that in particular. And then another question came in from Samuel. Are we looking at IoT asset tracking at all?
You know what's kind of wild? So this past weekend, I spun up an old project of mine. Has anyone heard of a Pi-hole before? A Pi-hole is when you take a Raspberry Pi and turn it into your DNS and it blocks every ad possibly served on your network. And when I told my colleague, hey, I'm doing this, he was like, oh, you can get the agent running on a Raspberry Pi. It's fairly easy. So there are opportunities that we have to kind of expand devices. And there's ways right now that with Linux, there's many things that you can do to install the agent on a Linux device, but not one of the supported distros, which at that point is kind of Wild West, right? The agent's running, the features that work. If they work, that's great. But from a support perspective, we don't regression test against those distros. But IoT is interesting because of our blue ocean opportunity for Linux. And depending on the distro right now, there is the ability to install the agent, like I just gave with my example for the Raspberry Pi. So these are things that we're thinking about from a strategy perspective that certainly IoT devices aren't going anywhere. Certainly they have security needs. What level effort would it take for us to say, hey, let's go from this free form, if you can install it, that's great, to an actual supported, so we run tests against it. And I can't really speak to what it is, but I think it's a really interesting item for us to look into. IoT devices are real devices that run operating systems that the agent can run on. Therefore, there's an opportunity for us to look at that and say, hey, is this an area that we want to get into?
Yeah, especially we had some interesting stories around stuff like that when we were doing our pre-Halloween show, where we were doing our scary security stories. And Tom had an interesting one around a internet-enabled refrigerator. I don't know if you've heard his story, but it's in there from our I think it was the 28th, about what happens when you don't secure devices like that, especially when it's in a construction zone. Some interesting thing happens when you've got a nice big screen on a refrigerator and you haven't locked down the browser. So yes, those are, it's a good thing to consider that. So let's see, what else do we have in here? Rob saying that SentinelOne became top choice solely because of the community support for it. And I wish we could get an unsupported install script for Linux for the agent, because I have Debian based devices that are modified, think Proxmox, in my test environment that I'd like to have the user logins available for.
I feel like we need to spin up like a lab section in the community where it's like things that you've spun up in your lab that are exciting and cool. Like that's a great example.
Yeah.
No doubt, right? Like there's an opportunity to start to kind of draw a line and say, hey, here's our things you can do with the platform that are possible. And as we see more support for it and engagement, that could help drive our decision to say, hey, this is something we need to build. So it could be a possible cool way to use the community to say, hey, what's the craziest unsupported thing you've done with the platform that works, that could give us here at JumpCloud some insight into the reality of how wide our platform is and how many cool things can be done with it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Rob, and let Scott know, we have a Home Labs label in the community that people can use to kind of label what they're doing with their experimentation. So some people have started using it a little bit. So that's one way. For those of you who don't know that, you could label Home Labs and you use that to showcase what you're experimenting with. Justin says SentinelOne isn't in VPP. If I could deploy through Software Manager and somehow have JumpCloud automate a script to set security preferences, it'll save a lot of headache. Okay. That's a good, I don't know, is that something that should be put in as a feature request, Scott?
Yep. I believe we've got like a CrowdStrike policy for the profile that needs to be laid down. And that makes that easier. So that would kind of be an analog for that inside of policies, so that you could use our MDM to lay down the right profile. If I read into that, Justin, I think one of the things you're looking for, right, is to have the right approvals laid down from an MDM perspective so that SentinelOne agent can run. Is that kind of what we're getting after? Or even better yet, just a policy that does it all, lays down the profile, installs SentinelOne, and probably has some level of parameter so you can put in your key.
Yeah, MDM profile and then have JumpCloud install.
Yep.
And Justin says yes. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that getting most of that as hands-free as possible is probably where we're trying to head with that, or where they're asking us to head with that. I mean, wow, some really great stuff here. Are there any other? Let's see where we're at with our poll. So we had one additional vote after leaving it open for a little while. So Edge is at 75%. So there you go with your info, and 2 Firefox and 1 Brave, and no love for Opera, but I'm not surprised. Not surprised there, but there we go. Oh, somebody just jumped in and voted for Edge, bumped it up one more. Somebody snuck in there. So there we go. Still the only Brave. No, we've got 2 for Brave now, Morgan. So, yes, stop it. You're just trying to get me to sing. I am not going to sing Brave. I love Sarah Bareilles, but I'm not going to sing it. With that, we'll keep an eye on the chat. And we just have a couple of news items today. Obviously, Patch Tuesday, there were 6 0 days for Patch Tuesday. So please go take a look if you have not. There's a lot going on. 2 of the 0 days were high severity vulnerabilities in Exchange. And if they are used together, they allow hackers to execute malicious code on servers. CVE 2022 41040 and 41082. that came to light in September. The third 0 day is 41128, and that's a vulnerability that also allows a threat actor to execute malicious code remotely. The next two are escalation of privilege vulnerabilities. 41073 affects the print spooler, and 41125 resides in the Windows CNG key isolation service. And the last one, 41091, allows hackers to create malicious files that evade mark of the web defenses. And again, all of those start with CVE 2022. Please make sure you are patching regularly. And then another vulnerability thing I thought we should call out, there's some laptop flaws that could help malware survive a hard disk wipe for Lenovo. They pushed out a security update to more than 24 of their laptop models following discovery of a high severity vulnerability that could be exploited by hackers. Researchers at ESET discovered flaws in 25 Lenovo laptop models, including IdeaPads, Slims, ThinkBooks, that could be used to disable the EUFI secure boot process. And this matters because secure boot is a feature that allows the PC's firmware to be locked down as a defense against rootkits. So this could open opportunities for cybercriminals to install malicious firmware onto a device that could survive a hard drive being wiped or an operating system being reinstalled. Lenovo mistakenly shipped to the public some drivers that were only supposed to have been used during the manufacturing process. So they, well, at least they are putting out a fix for that. But if you have any Lenovo laptops in your fleet, please check and make sure that you are getting those updates out. Yeah, Rob, good question. Are they really rootkits when they're bootkits? And James says, speaking of Patch Tuesday, I have a few machines that are not up to date, but are showing up to date. They have the jump cloud policies applied. Scott, do you have any advice on that?
I would say we'll go the support route on that. The release just came out 3 days ago, so showing up to date is where I would look at the fleet distro and the latest tag. And the way that latest tag works is that if they're running one of the builds that is the latest build in the recent OS releases, then they demonstrate the latest. Everything for our Windows patch management is about updates available through the Windows Updates for Business channel. But because last Tuesday was Patch Tuesday, that release comes through that channel. So latest in that case would be all related to the latest build number, and that's how we tag it. But yeah, would need more info to kind of dig in there and certainly look at the support options.
Yeah, so please go ahead and go that route, James, and we'll try to get you situated on that. Because yeah, there was a lot of those, and we will have our recap in the community. Alexa will post that, and we'll have all those CVEs listed, so you can double check the numbers on those. And with that, I think that that's everything for today. I didn't go heavily into the news. We've just had a lot of other stuff going on this week. It's been a busy week, catching back up on everything. But as always, we are happy to have you. Oh, and by the way, we did a quick little Thankful Thursday yesterday, thanking the community. So if you don't follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, please do, because we posted a video just saying thanks for being with us, and we call out the IT hour and all of y'all for hanging out with us and making our week so much fun every week. We really enjoy this time. It's one of our favorite parts of the week, and a lot of you, yeah. Alexa, do you have that?
I will go get them. Yeah, Becky made a wonderful
It
video.
was all right. It has me. Therefore, it's just meh. But it was fun to make. But yeah, I mean, seriously, thank you all for coming each and every week and making this a lot of fun, for participating, and for helping each other out, answering each other's questions, and here and in Slack and in the community and in lots of other places. We actually really do appreciate that, and we want to make sure you realize that Thanksgiving's coming up, and we're just trying to practice being thankful So yeah, thank you. Actually, I think I have it in my mentions. Oh, she found it. I was going to say I know they mentioned me, so I know it's in my notifications. But there you go. There's the video saying thank you. And with that, have a great weekend. Thanks for joining us on what's a holiday for some people. And we will see. Alexa, what's our topic for next week?
Yes, we are back next week. We are releasing our SME IT Trends report next Wednesday. So we'll be back on Friday, excuse me, to review those findings.
All right. Looking forward to that. And Chase will be joining us to talk about those trends. Always a good time. Yeah. Turkey Murder Day coming up soon. Both of my kids have birthdays right before Thanksgiving, so that should be pretty awesome. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will see you next Friday. Take care. Thanks for joining us, Scott
Bye.
and Alexa.